guys, it's Melanie. So today's video is all about my recent eyebrow micro shading experience. So today is actually Tuesday when I'm recording this, and I just had my brows done yesterday. So these are very fresh, which is why they are very dark and very intense looking right now. Just kind of like when I had my brows done last year, they do really start out significantly darker, and then as they heal, they're going to lighten up significantly. So I wanted to share my experience with you guys because last year I did a little bit of a series about my microblading experience, and I will be honest and tell you that the microblading just turns out wasn't for me. My skin did not hold the pigment from the microblading worth beans. And I also don't think the place where I had them done put the pigment deep enough into my skin. The way that it faded was just very drastically and very quickly. Now I did still have a little bit of an outline, but not much. In fact, when I went to go do my consultation with the woman who did the machine work on me, she was like, wow, are you sure you had these done a year ago? It looks like you had this done like 2 years ago. Like they were that faded. So the reason that I wanted to try this again was I was doing some research and was finding that micro shading with a machine, so almost like a tattoo gun, was just a better fit for someone with very oily skin. And so I figured for my birthday this year, once again, I would go ahead and invest in getting my brows done one more time just to see how the micro shading holds up versus the microblading. So this is a little bit of a test, and thankfully it's a good excuse for me to share this process with you guys and just kind of like document it for myself so I can see, you know, what the progress of my brows are over the next, 6 months to a year. I do intend on going in for my touch-up towards the middle of December. So these need just about a month to heal up, and then I will obviously go back in and have them filled in a little bit more depending on how they heal. So one thing that I can already tell is that they are much more taupe this time around. The artist who I went to definitely leaned more towards the taupe end of the spectrum because she thought it would look a little bit more natural. I did ask her to put just a little bit more of the gray into the taupe formula that she was using. You'll have to pardon, I forgot to ask her the name of the pigments, but it is a different pigment company this go around than I had with the microblading last year. So the bottles look totally different, but I didn't think to ask her what the name of the actual brow tint was. So I think that as they heal, they will definitely gray out just a little bit more. But at my touch-up appointment, I do intend on asking her to just put probably another 2 drops of gray in with the taupe just to get it a little bit more to my liking. So, but I am trying to sort of, step back and trust the process. She is very experienced. She's actually a tattoo artist, so that is what she started out doing. And then she went over to doing microblading and then started doing machine work with the micro shading. So there's actually very few people where I live that do the machine work. I know a lot of you were like, oh my gosh, no, don't permanently tattoo your brows. I don't believe that this goes as deep as an actual tattoo. I do have 2 tattoos on my body, and I don't think that the ink is injected as deeply into the skin as it is with an actual tattoo. So over time, these will fade, but my intention is to get a touch-up at the 6-month mark, and then from there do yearly touch-ups. I did ask her about potential scar tissue in terms of doing that, and she said you're actually much less likely to have scar tissue from microshading than you are microblading. So over time, she mentioned if you continue to do the microblading once a year, once every 2 years, there is scar tissue that could potentially build up. So it's not something that you can do forever necessarily. So I'll be curious to see just how long I can go with the microshading before there starts to be an issue in terms of any kind of scarring or anything like that. So I feel like I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but let me just kind of start with the process of drawing the brows on. She did take a lot longer than the girl that I went to last year to draw on my brows. I think she spent like a solid half hour, 45 minutes drawing my brows, and she kept redrawing this one. My face is very expressive, and my brow muscles are crazy strong. I tend to hold this one higher, and so she kept like having to like massage my muscles up here to get them to relax, because she really wanted my brows to be even when I just kind of had my just resting face. And that's actually really hard to do. So it took us a while to get them perfect. So when I look in the mirror, I can totally tell, like, I hold this brow higher. So, but they are even. So when I am just kind of like, you know, straight ahead, like not smiling, not laughing, not frowning, not doing anything, just, you know, flat affect, like they're perfect. But brows they're never really even necessarily. So I wasn't going for that, but I did want them to obviously match. I didn't want the tail of this one to go up and this one to go down. So we took a long time to sort of look in the mirror, and, you know, I would lay back down, she would fix it, I would sit up, we'd look in the mirror together and then go back down. We did this several times, and then after we got the shape perfect, we went in with the colors, and she started mixing some colors up. She tested them on my forehead just like I did last year, and I trusted her with going a little bit more taupe. This particular pigment that she uses, she did say does tend to heal a little bit cooler toned, which is exactly what I want. So we will see. I do still have my touch-up, so if I want it grayer, she can do that. So that's not a big deal, and I'm actually pretty okay with the color right now. It is different from what I normally do. You guys normally see me with my very gray eyebrows, but I kind of like this. I love the shape that she did. I can't stop looking at my brows. In terms of the actual micro shading, so she uses a machine. It looks kind of similar to a tattoo gun. It's just like a little, like, almost pencil looking thing, and I believe that she uses a single needle, and just like a tattoo, when you're shading in a tattoo, she just goes back and forth and back and forth. I did have some lidocaine put on while I was filling out my paperwork, so that sat for about 20 minutes. And then she went in. I did feel it, but it wasn't crazy painful. And I'll be honest, I think that the micro shading, like with the tattoo gun, was less painful than the microblading last year. I have given birth. I had a mommy makeover. I know what pain is. So the microblading last year was uncomfortable, but it was nowhere near any other type of serious pain that I've ever experienced. Everyone's a little different though. For me, the pain from the micro shading, so from the machine work, was less painful than someone scratching in with, you know, the little line of needles. Honestly, I much prefer the micro shading over the microblading in terms of application. She did the initial outline and kind of filled in the middle a little bit, and then put some more lidocaine, and this particular lidocaine had like an anti-bleeding type of component to it, so it slowed down my bleeding just a little bit. My brows are, she called them kind of juicy, which I was like, oh gross. But there was just a lot of like plasma, I guess, that was coming out, and I did bleed just a little bit more than I guess an average person, but you know, she would just sop that up and she would keep going, and at the end she did take a little bit longer to leave the witch hazel on my brows to kind of draw out that white, you know, healing goo. I think it's plasma, I'm pretty sure that's what it is that was coming out. Yeah, so she did both brows. I felt it, but I wasn't crying. It wasn't that painful. It did really affect my sinuses, which made my eyes water like crazy, which was really obnoxious because I could feel the tears like welling up, but I couldn't dry them myself. So every once in a while she'd have to stop and dry my tears, which is annoying, but not a huge deal. It was a really long appointment. I got there at noon and I left at close to 3 o'clock. So it was close to 3 hours by the time that it was all said and done, which was much longer than last year's appointment. But I didn't mind. I really wanted them done well so that they, you know, had a fighting chance. She was very confident that this particular technique really is the way to go for oily skin. And when I tell you guys that I have oily skin, I always stress that I have crazy oily skin. It is not normal oiliness. Like, I think most people are like, yeah, my skin's really oily. No, it's not. You have some oil. I have oil. She was actually, she was mentioning, she was like, yeah, like by the size of your pores, like no offense, but I can tell, like you produce a ton of oil, and it's great for, you know, keeping the wrinkles away, but it is very frustrating and it can have an effect on pigment holding in your skin. But she said, because this goes, you know, to the proper depth, that my skin should retain that pigment longer this go around. And she was very consistent with the depth that she was putting the needle in. And that's what I liked about her being a tattoo artist to begin with. Like, she's been doing that for a while and she does beautiful tattoos. If I were to ever get another one, I would definitely go to her. She does a very good job. So I kind of know that she's very experienced with how far the needle should go in. You know, she's very artistic, and I just felt really confident laying there and letting her do my brows. And she has a great personality too. Like, I love talking to her, and overall, I much prefer the micro shading. In terms of price, this was actually less expensive for me than the microblading last year. So the more that I thought about it, the more I was a little bit annoyed, and this was much later down the line because I didn't think about it at the time. But when I had my microblading done, I paid, you know, I paid for the initial microblading, and then you pay for the touch-up appointment. So I think I paid $400 for the initial, and then I was to pay $50 for the touch-up. So when I came in for the touch-up, we both realized the individual hair strokes not gonna work for you. And so she wanted to stamp in, very similar to micro shading with the machine, but done by hand. But she then charged me the $50 touch-up fee, and I think an additional $150 or $200 to do the micro shading. So I didn't so much mind paying the micro shading difference, but I was a little bit annoyed that she charged me the $50 touch-up fee on top of the additional like micro shading fee. So that was a lot more expensive. To have just the micro shading done with the machine was 400, I think it was either 400 or 450. So, and that includes my touch-up. Like there's no separate like fee for the touch-up appointment. I show up in December and she does my brows and I walk out. Like there are no other fees. I did give her a tip and I paid the tip up front. So I don't intend on tipping her again in December because I tipped her really well. I did 20%. So, but I don't count that towards the fee. That's a separate thing. You don't have to tip, but I know for me, like so I'm a florist. I always appreciate when I make my deliveries. If someone gives me a tip, it's never a requirement, but it's nice. It's a nice way of saying thank you for doing a really good job. I love my eyebrows, thank you. So yeah, this is gonna end up being much cheaper for me. Plus she does a 6-month touch-up for, I think it's $75. And then if you come within a year, it's like $100. So I can pay $100 a year to touch these up. Like I don't mind that at all. The girl that I went to last year just charges you the full amount again. At least she did last year. And so I was like, yeah, I don't want to pay like another $650. So, plus I wanted the machine work and she just doesn't do that. So overall, 2 thumbs up. I am very happy with these. They are going to get dry, but not as dry as last year because this is another thing I should talk about. I'm not doing dry healing this year. Last year I did dry healing, which means that I did not put any type of ointment. I did not wash my eyebrows, nothing. I was to go home and keep them as dry as possible. Do not get them wet. And so I followed that to a T. This year, I was to come home and last night I was to wash my brows. She gave me a little vial of Dr. Bronner's soap to wash just this area with, which removed a lot of like that chunky, like dried blood and plasma that was kind of oozing out during the afternoon. And then she gave me this little container here that has a mixture of different types of oils and waxes that she actually blends up herself. I think she has shea butter in here, calendula. She does put a little bit of lavender oil in here, although not very much at all. Like I can barely smell the lavender. There's mango butter. There's a few different types of hydrating oils in here. And I am to take just a little bit of this on a clean Q-tip. I have to warm it up first on the back of my hand. So obviously making sure that everything is super, super clean. And then I just put a little layer on in the morning and a little layer at night. Like you don't want to like soak the brows or anything. And I also put just a little bit of this on my brows before I get in the shower, so that essentially the water kind of beads off and doesn't get into my brows too much. So again, you're not gonna go swimming with brand new brows. You're not gonna stand under the shower head and like let the water run down. I do have to be careful for the next couple of weeks, but after that, they should be good to go. Obviously, there are, for the next couple of months, I'm not gonna be using any retinols, any AHAs, any lactic acid in this area at all. All of my skincare will mostly be from here down. The only thing I will use on my forehead is my Paula's Choice Niacinamide Toner, and I'm really gonna use that only in very specific areas. I will spot treat any breakouts with a little bit of Paula's Choice BHA, but I'm gonna have to be pretty careful. Skincare can travel, so it'll be hard, but I do think that I was really careful the last go around with my skincare. You kind of get used to where you can put it. I leave a buffer like this, so I don't treat any of this skin right here, which is fine because it normally doesn't need anything. But you don't want to put any vitamin C, you don't want to put any retinol type products, nothing that is going to help with hyperpigmentation or skin surface turnover or anything like that. So You have to be really careful with skincare, obviously, which I've gotten used to that, so that's fine. I will have to be careful. Over the last couple of months, I have just gone back to using my Clarisonic in this general area, but you do also want to avoid things like Clarisonic over your brows. You don't want to cause any type of excessive exfoliation, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, that's kind of it. I feel like that answers most of the questions. So less expensive, less painful, just much more positive experience for me all around. I'm so excited with the way that these turned out, and I can't wait to see them all healed. I will for sure update you guys after I do, I'll do a video after they're healed for a little bit longer, and then I will also do a video after my touch-up and let you guys kind of in on anything that happened at that appointment, and then we'll revisit every few months to see how the brows are holding up. So this will be a good little experiment, and I know a lot of you are very curious about how long these will last versus the microblading. Honestly, if these don't last, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might just choose to do touch-ups every 6 months, every 6 to 8 months, or I may just let my brows be what they are and I will just have to color them in for the rest of my life. I really hope this holds up at least decently. I don't mind the expense of doing the yearly touch-ups. I feel like I spend that much on brow products anyway, so I might as well have them be permanent. Yeah. I'm not worried about the pigment bleeding or anything like that. I think they'll be fine. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I will try to do my best to answer them down below in the comments section. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.